everyone. Today's a cold and gray day in England as it usually is in winter. So I decided to make a little Valentine's Day preparation in a Victorian style. So a little bit about me. My partner is English, I'm American, and I knew that Valentine's Day had a lot of roots in Anglo history. I'm so excited because I was able to find some antique items to create a little tea setting. They aren't all historically accurate, but I was able to find some from the late 1800s to about early 1940s, which is very exciting, and I'll show you in a bit. But going back a bit further, when I started planning this video, I wanted to know how Valentine's Day began. So I did a bit of research on the origins, and it turns out that Valentine's Day, as we know it, is American, but it is an amalgam of several festivals, martyrs, and stories. So this is what I have found on the English Heritage site. There are a few reliable facts about the historical Saint Valentine. All that can be said with any degree of confidence is that he was a martyr who was put to death for his Christian faith, probably around the year 270, and likely on the 14th of February, the day commemorated as his feast or holy day. Early Christian sources identified 3 saints called Valentine who made the ultimate sacrifice for their faith. The only thing known about one is that he died in North Africa and was martyred alongside numerous companions. The other 2 Valentines were martyred in or near Rome and have claims to be the saint commemorated on the 14th of February. The confusion over who was the true Saint Valentine was ultimately settled by Bollandus, a group of scholarly Jesuit priests and the ultimate authority on saints. They detected so many similarities between the legends of these 2 Valentines that they concluded that they were in fact the same person. February 14th feast day was observed in churches great and small. So if evidence from English monastic calendars of feast days is anything to go by, ambiguity about Valentine's precise identity persisted well into the late Middle Ages. The saint, sometimes described as priest and on other occasions as bishop, claims that Valentine performed secret Christian marriages in defiance of a ban on marriage imposed by the Emperor Claudius II are without any historical foundation. The purported ban is possibly a misunderstanding of a decree issued by Claudius' 1st century namesake Claudius that gave soldiers who weren't allowed to marry the rights of married men. There is also no historical basis to the associated legend that Valentine passed clandestine notes between jailed Christian lovers. Some modern scholars have claimed that the association between the 14th of February, St. Valentine's feast day, and romance is an ancient Roman fertility cult called Lupercalia. The Lupercalia celebration was held in mid-February and, according to the Oxford Classical Dictionary, included odd rates. I'll spare you the details, but I'll link the website in case you want to learn more. I've also linked a child-friendly site if you too have a young, curious one. And I've linked a brief video I found here from World History Encyclopedia. Following that, I found out about Geoffrey Chaucer, Henry VIII, Kate Greenaway, and Esther Howland. So Geoffrey Chaucer was a Middle English poet who wrote the Canterbury Tales, written between 1387 and 1400. These are a collection of 24 stories, mostly in verse, framed as a storytelling contest among pilgrims traveling from London to St. Thomas Becket's shrine in Canterbury. The tales explore themes of love, greed, and social satire across different social classes, and he also seems to have been the first to mention St. Valentine's Day in his poem, The Parliament of Fowls. So that left me with a question of how did gift giving for Valentine's, and more specifically Valentine's card making, start? Now that I've learned about the murkiness of the origins and feel so much more informed, when did Valentine's Day as we know it begin, with love letters, flowers, chocolates, etc.? In the 1500s came King Henry VIII, known for his 6 wives and the murder of 2 of them. He is widely credited with officially recognizing St. Valentine's Day in England. In 1537, he declared February 14th a holiday dedicated to St. Valentine. However, the tradition of choosing a Valentine and giving gifts was already established. Let's fast forward to 1837 when British postal rates were high and complex. To simplify matters, Sir Rowland Hill proposed an adhesive stamp to indicate prepayment of postage. And at the time, it was normal for the recipient to pay postage on delivery, charged by the sheet and on the distance traveled. Can you imagine that if we did that now? I wouldn't mind sending things if I wasn't the one paying postage. The following year, 400,000 Valentine's Day cards were sent in the UK, and it's believed that the opportunity for anonymity saw the rise of raunchier poetry. In 1868, Cadbury introduced heart-shaped boxes, and the same year, Kate Greenaway began to exhibit her illustrations. She studied art and graphic design in places like London. She exhibited drawings and illustrations and wrote successful books, including Under the Window, Mother Goose, and Little Anne. And she also designed popular Valentine's cards for the publisher Marcus Ward & Co. Aren't these drawings so adorable? She's a fascinating character and I could dedicate a whole video to her life story. Let me know if you'd like that. Now, Esther Helen, who lived between 1828 and 1904, enters the scene. She was an artist and entrepreneur who was responsible for popularizing Valentine's Day greeting cards in America. She was born in Worcester, Massachusetts. And if you could see my notes, I actually wrote it Worcester so I could pronounce it correctly because I'm tempted to say Worcester. Her mother wrote the cookbook, The New England Economical Housekeeper and Family Receipt Book. It was published in 1844 and for the next 10 years by Esther's father, who operated S.A. Howland and Sons, the largest book and stationery store in Worcester, Massachusetts. After graduating from college, Esther received a Valentine's card from a business associate of her father's. It was decorated with a lace border, flower cutouts, and a small pale green envelope in the center that contained a verse appropriate for Valentine's Day. During this time, elaborate Valentine's greeting cards were imported from Europe and were not affordable to many Americans. Esther was determined she could make a better card and had her father order supplies from New York and England. She hoped for $200 worth of orders and received over 5,000. Esther created an assembly line and hired friends to copy the designs and make the card. She also created work-from-home roles for women, sending them boxes with everything they needed to complete the work. She said the workers were paid liberally and the work was light and pleasant. While Valentine's Day cards had existed in America for decades, Esther Helen was the first to turn them into a commercial industry. She was later remembered as the mother of the American Valentine. She transformed card design by creating the lift-up Valentine, adding layers of lace and paper, three-dimensional accordion effects, and playful bouquets that revealed hidden verses when tugged by a string. It's safe to say that Valentine's Day really exploded in the late 1800s to early 1900s, but now I want to go back a bit in time to my inspiration for a Valentine's Day party. But first, I thought I'd make a little cake. So around the 1840s, the Victoria sponge or Victoria sandwich originated. As you can probably tell, it was named after Queen Victoria, who is also the monarch the Western Victorian era is named after. Queen Victoria reigned from 1837 to 1901. It's said she enjoyed slices of this sponge cake with her afternoon tea. She commonly took tea around 4 or 5 p.m. and that often featured cake, small sandwiches, and sweets. We love an indulgent queen. We know a bit about the love story between her and Prince Albert and the many letters and gifts they gave to each other, but I found that the most obvious connection she had to Valentine's Day was the letters written to John Brown, her servant. Queen Victoria was distraught after the passing of Prince Albert and sought out her friend and servant John Brown, a Scottish man who helped her with writing lessons. An excerpt from the Tatler reads, "In 1861, the tragic death of Albert from typhoid left the Queen distraught. She spent most of her time at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, leading her daughter, Princess Alice, to suggest that Brown traveled down from Scotland with her pony. The Queen was vastly rejuvenated by Brown's arrival, and the pair spent increasing amounts of time together. Sadly, Brown fell ill with an infection, and in 1883 he died. In a sign of her affection, she commissioned her favorite poet, Alfred Lord Tennyson, to write the inscription on Brown's tombstone, and he was buried in Crathy Kirkyard, the royal family's preferred church. The Queen's chaplain, the Reverend Norman MacLeod, made a stunning confession on his deathbed in 1885 that he had, in fact, presided over the marriage of Victoria and Brown at Crathy Kirk in Scotland. The claim has been questioned by some historians, but many believe that the ceremony really did take place. In 1901, she was buried with Brown's mother's wedding ring on her right hand, while in her left, she held a photograph of him, hidden by flowers. Also in her coffin was a lock of Brown's hair and several of his loving letters. What's clear is just how meaningful Brown was to the Queen and the esteem in which they held one another. And as for the rumors, we expect them to rage for another century, at least. Well, thank you for watching. I hope this inspired you to create your own Victorian Valentines or get together with some friends to make some handmade cards. I'll see you next time.